My son Jasper has a system for new rooms. He walks in, finds a position with a clear sightline, and spends the first few minutes doing nothing except watching how the room works. Who talks to whom? Who looks at their phone when someone else is speaking? Who arrived early and who arrived exactly on time? He developed this somewhere around age 8 and has never explained it to me directly, but I've watched it work enough times to recognize it. Tonight the headphones are around his neck instead of on his ears. That's the tell. In rooms he understands, the studio, school, flag football, the headphones go on and he disappears into whatever he's listening to. In rooms he's still mapping, they stay down. He wants the audio. This is his first industry event. He's 10, spends most of his free time on a studio couch with a sketchbook, absorbing sessions the way other kids absorb cartoons. I brought him tonight because he asked, and because the reasons I had for saying no didn't survive contact with the question. The room is a private dining space at a restaurant my father Dwight has been using for label occasions since before I was born. 34 guests, white tablecloths, small podium at the front. My father founded Calloway Sound 40 years ago, built it from a regional operation into something with real catalog weight, then spent the better part of a decade watching that weight slowly erode. For the last 6 of those years, I was the one rebuilding it. A&R director, head producer, the person artists called when they wanted something to actually work. 3 charting albums, 2 sync deals. Infrastructure my father didn't have when I arrived. 6 weeks ago, he announced my younger sister Sloane as managing director. She's 27, has an MBA and 4 months in this industry, which she has described in 3 LinkedIn posts as transformative. Her husband Ty came with the announcement, head of marketing, same dinner, same evening, with an SMM background and a fluency in language that sounds like strategy without quite being it. I said no to the paperwork that would have made all of it simple. So now I'm at my father's anniversary dinner with my son, watching how the room works. Jasper sat down, put the headphones around his neck, and started watching too. I didn't say anything. Some things are better observed than commented on. My father opened the evening with a toast. Brief, appropriately formal. The kind a founder gives when he wants the room to understand that the institution matters more than any individual in it. He mentioned 40 years. He mentioned legacy. He looked comfortable in the way people look comfortable when they've decided the evening is going to go well. Then my sister stepped to the podium. She had prepared remarks. You could tell by the specific way she paused, not the pause of someone thinking, but the pause of someone who knows what comes next and is letting the previous sentence land. Calloway Sound is 40 years of heritage, she said, and I'm proud to be leading this label into its next decade. The catalog we built, the artists we developed, this is our legacy. Jasper turned to me, quiet enough that only I could hear. Is she talking about your songs? Seems like it. But she didn't make them. No. He looked at her for one more second with the expression of someone adding information to a file they've been keeping for a while. Then he turned back to the room and kept watching. We is doing a lot of work in that sentence. 6 years of catalog, 3 charting albums, a sync infrastructure Sloane inherited 4 months ago. One small word. It fits considerably more history into it than it was designed to hold. Veteran producer Graham Ashby was at the table to my left. 28 years in this industry, runs a mid-sized production company in Atlanta that has put out more charting records per dollar spent than any operation twice its size. He doesn't attend industry dinners unless he has a reason to be there, and his reasons are never the ones printed on the invitation. He waited until Sloane had returned to her seat before he turned to me. Heard you signed Marcus Cole, he said. He turned down 2 majors. Marcus Cole was the artist my sister had mentioned 3 times in 6 weeks as proof Calloway Sound was moving in the right direction. He had chosen Calloway Independent Productions instead, the company I registered a year ago, formalized 6 weeks ago, running out of a studio space that fits exactly the people who need to be in it. We found common ground, I said. His EP first week numbers. 380. Graham nodded the nod of someone confirming information they already had. Sloane, from across the table, without waiting. It's a boutique project. Early days. We wish them well, of course. Graham looked at her for a moment. Then, back at me. 380,000 streams in 7 days isn't boutique, he said. That's a statement. A small pause settled over that section of the table. Not uncomfortable, the specific pause of a room recalibrating. Rising R&B artist Dex Waller set down his glass. 23, 3 albums we built together over 4 years. He left Calloway Sound 6 weeks ago and signed with me directly. He didn't look at Sloane when he spoke. He chose Reid because he knew who actually does the work. Music journalist Cassie Holt, 2 seats down, wrote something in her notebook. First note of the evening. My father had invited her for a label overview piece. I didn't look at what she wrote. Graham Ashby does not make statements he hasn't already verified. 380,000 streams in 7 days was not a compliment. It was a number he looked up before he arrived, said out loud in a room of 34 people, and aimed at no one in particular. Someone caught it anyway. My sister recovered the way she recovers. Quickly, with a smile that costs her something and doesn't show it. We were actually in conversations with Marcus ourselves, she said. The timing just... She stopped. Dex's manager, Keelan Moore, was sitting beside him. 38, 20 years in the industry, the kind of person who gets mentioned in trades for what he doesn't say as often as for what he does. My sister had registered him when we walked in. The specific nod of someone who recognizes a face they'd prefer not to see tonight. Keelan didn't respond to what she was saying. He reached into the bag beside his chair, took out a folder, standard manila, nothing marked on the outside, set it on the table in front of him, flat, centered, deliberate. Then he looked at my sister with the expression of someone who arrived with a prepared answer and sees no reason to rush delivering it. The folder sat there. Sloane looked at it. She had seen folders like this before. Not this specific folder, but the shape of it, the weight of it sitting on a table in a room full of people, the way Keelan's hands were no longer on it, the way he wasn't explaining anything. She knew what folders like this meant when they were placed exactly that way. Jasper, beside me, was completely still. He wasn't watching the room anymore. He was watching the folder. 6 weeks ago, a phone call arrived at 9:47 p.m. Dex calling late on a weeknight was unusual enough that I picked up on the second ring. He spoke slowly, the specific pace of someone who has been sitting with difficult information long enough to have decided exactly how to deliver it. He had been reviewing his ASCAP royalty statements. Public performance numbers on his tracks were significantly higher than what Calloway Sound had been sending him every quarter. He had found authorization forms, 8 of them filed over 24 months, that redirected royalty distributions from my personal publishing account to Calloway Sound LLC. Each one carried a signature that looked like mine. I told him I hadn't signed any of them. He told me he knew. He sent the scans before we hung up. I spread all 8 across the kitchen table and looked at them for a long time. The signature was close. Same general shape, same lean, same way the R connects at the start. Close enough to pass a casual review. Not close enough to pass mine. I called my entertainment attorney Nora Finch that same night. She's been practicing IP and music law for 19 years, has seen the full range of what people do to each other's catalogs, and has the specific quality of never sounding alarmed even when the information warrants it. I walked her through all 8 forms. She said she'd have handwriting analysis done by morning. Morning came back with a result I already knew. Reid. Her voice had the careful weight of someone about to change the shape of a conversation. She wasn't just diverting royalties. She was removing the legal trail of something else. I found an email. Dwight to Sloane, 5 years ago. 1 week after your A&R appointment. She read it to me. My father's words, in his specific register of someone who thinks of himself as a man of his word. We should get Reid's equity papers sorted. I promised him 15% when he took A&R. Let's not delay this. I didn't say anything. Sloane's reply, Nora said. Let's wait for the right moment. And the first diversion form? Filed 3 months later. The silence after that had a particular quality. Not surprise. I was past surprise by then. More like recognition. The specific feeling of a shape you've been looking at from the wrong angle finally resolving into what it actually is. What does 15% cost now? I asked. With the catalog. Conservatively, over $220,000. Dwight wrote, "Let's not delay this," in May. The first diversion form was filed in August. 3 months is not a long time to wait for the right moment. It is, however, exactly long enough for someone to decide the right moment is never. 3 days before the anniversary dinner, I met Cassie Holt for coffee. I had known Cassie was on the guest list. My father had mentioned the invitation in passing, described it as a label overview piece, seemed pleased about it in the way he gets pleased when he thinks the narrative is under control. Cassie covers the independent music space for 2 industry publications. She is thorough, patient, and has the qualities shared by the best journalists of never asking a question she already knows the answer to. We met at a place near her office. I brought a folder, ASCAP public records, nothing that required any access beyond what's available to anyone with a registration number in 20 minutes. I set it on the table between us. "You're going to be at the anniversary dinner," I said. "Dwight invited me for a label piece. When you're there, just verify what you hear. Don't publish anything yet, just listen and verify." She opened the folder, read the first document, then the second, set it down and looked at me across the table. She didn't ask any questions. "I'll come prepared," she said. "I know." The meeting lasted 11 minutes. I left her with the folder. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. Reid said 4 sentences. Cassie asked 0 questions. When a journalist reads 2 documents at a coffee table and doesn't ask any questions, it means the documents already answered them. In between all of this, there was actual work to do. Calloway Independent Productions had been a registered LLC for over a year before I formalized it 6 weeks ago. A small studio space leased in my name only, exactly large enough for the people who need to be in it. No lobby, no receptionist, no branded water bottles. A board, 2 isolation booths, a couch where my son has established what I can only describe as a permanent residency. Jasper's corner, the couch, his acoustic guitar, a Bluetooth speaker he brought from home one day and never brought back. He treats the studio the same way he treats any room he's decided belongs to him. Quietly, completely, without asking permission. Marcus Cole signed with Calloway Independent 3 weeks after I reached out. He had turned down 2 major label offers in the previous 6 months, which is the decision that gets you mentioned in trades and gets other people calling to ask what you're looking for. What he was looking for, it turned out, was someone who would stay in the room for the whole session and not take calls during playback. We released his EP 5 weeks after signing. 380,000 streams in the first 7 days. Dex, formerly signed to Calloway Independent since week 2, had his first Calloway Independent sync placement confirmed the same week. Regional campaign, clean chain of title, authorization from me personally, no Monday morning surprises for the sync coordinator. I didn't announce any of this publicly. No LinkedIn posts about new chapters, no Instagram stories about exciting directions. The industry noticed the way it notices things that are real, through other people mentioning it, through numbers that show up in databases, through producers like Graham Ashby looking things up before they walk into a room. That was enough. Which brings us back to the dining room. 34 guests. White tablecloths. Keelan Moore's folder sitting flat on the table in front of him, untouched. My sister was still mid-sentence about Marcus Cole when she stopped. She had been watching Keelan's hands. Now she was watching the folder the way you watch something you recognized before you understood why. Keelan looked at her with the patience of someone who has been in this industry long enough to know that the most effective thing you can do in certain rooms is simply wait. He opened the folder. 8 documents. He placed them face up in the center of the table, one at a time, evenly spaced, the way you lay out evidence when you want everyone in the room to be able to read it simultaneously. These authorization forms redirected royalty distributions from Reid Calloway's personal publishing account to the Calloway Sound marketing account, he said. 24 months. The rights holder's signature on each one is forged. Handwriting analysis confirmed that 2 weeks ago. He turned the top document slightly toward the center of the table. There's also a witness signature on each form. He said the name. Everyone looked at the same person at the same time. My mother, Lynette, 60 years old, the person in this family who has spent decades finding the precise distance from conflict that allows her to be present without being responsible for what happens. was sitting 4 seats down with the expression of someone who has just understood something she cannot ununderstand. Jasper was completely still beside me. He had stopped watching the room the moment Keelan put the first document down. He was reading the name on the witness line. The room had a specific quality of stillness now, not the stillness of a pause between sentences. The stillness of 34 people collectively deciding not to move until they understood what they were looking at. Keelan placed the last document face up and centered his hands on the edge of the table. 8 forms in 2 rows of 4, each one legible from where most of the guests were sitting. He had spaced them deliberately, the way you arrange things when you want a room to arrive at a conclusion on its own rather than be told what to think. These authorization forms redirected royalty distributions belonging to Dex Waller and Reid Calloway into the Calloway Sound marketing account, he said. Filed over 24 months. The rights holder's signature on each one has been confirmed as forged by independent handwriting analysis. He paused. Each form also carries a witness signature. He turned the top document slightly toward the center of the table. The name on the witness line was Lynette Calloway, written 8 times, in the same careful hand, across 2 years. 34 people looked at my mother. Jasper looked at his grandmother. Then at me. Then back at his grandmother. With the expression of someone running a calculation they didn't expect to be running tonight. My mother sat with her hands flat on the tablecloth and her eyes on the document in front of her. She had the look of someone who has just read a sentence in a language they thought they understood and found out they didn't. My sister moved first. Mom was signing routine administrative paperwork, she said. The tone was the one she uses when she's decided that confidence is the same as credibility. Standard label operations. This is being presented in a way that, you told me they were standard royalty redistribution forms. My mother's voice was quiet. Not the quiet of someone who is calm. The quiet of someone holding something very carefully because they're afraid of what happens if they don't. You said Reid had authorized them verbally. That the forms were a formality. Mom, you asked me to sign them 8 times. She looked up from the document. Over 2 years. The specific silence that followed was not the silence of a room waiting for someone to speak. It was the silence of a room that has received all the information it needs and is now simply sitting with it. Cassie Holt's pen was no longer moving. She had stopped writing at some point in the last 30 seconds. She was just watching. The particular stillness of someone whose job is to record things, understanding that some moments are better observed than documented. Lynette Calloway signed 8 documents because her daughter said they were standard forms. She is sitting at a table with 34 industry professionals and one 10-year-old grandson, learning what standard means in this context. Jasper already figured it out. It took him about 4 seconds. My father was looking at my sister. Not with anger. I want to be precise about this because anger would have been easier to sit with. He was looking at her with the expression of a man doing slow, reluctant arithmetic on information he has been given no choice but to calculate. The specific look of someone who built something over 40 years and is only now understanding what that thing was built on top of. My mother turned to me. Her eyes were wet. Her voice was the voice of someone spending significant effort to keep it level and mostly succeeding. Reid, she stopped. Started again. I was there, 5 years ago, in his office. She glanced briefly at my father, then back at me. He said 15%. He said it clearly, looked you in the eye, and shook your hand. I was standing by the window. I watched it happen. The table was completely silent. That was an informal conversation, my sister said. Not illegal. My father raised his head. He looked at Sloane the way you look at something when you have finally, after considerable resistance, allowed yourself to see it accurately. He didn't say anything. He just looked. The silence from my father carried more weight than anything he could have said. I've known him for 33 years. I know the difference between the silence of someone who disagrees and the silence of someone who has nothing left to argue. Under the table, Jasper took my hand. Not squeezing, just there. The specific pressure of someone who wants you to know they're present without making it into something you have to respond to. I didn't look down. I took out my phone. 2 rings. Nora. My entertainment attorney picked up on the second. We're ready. Her voice had the quality it gets when something has been prepared and is now simply being executed. Calm the way a well-rehearsed thing is calm. Equity claim and fraud complaint filed Monday morning. Royalty diversion total confirmed at $83,400. Equity claim, $220,000. ASCAP audit complete. We have everything. File it. Monday, first thing. I hung up, looked at Jasper. Let's get some air. He stood up immediately, the way he stands up when he's been ready to leave for a while, and was waiting for me to say so. We walked to the door together. Quietly. I didn't look back at the table. Jasper didn't either. What I know because I heard it described later. My sister's husband, Ty Briggs, did not move from his seat immediately. He sat for approximately 15 seconds after we left. Then he reached down, took the strap of his jacket from the back of his chair, and slid his chair away from my sister's by roughly 8 inches. Not standing up, not leaving, 8 inches. The specific distance of someone publicly establishing that whatever is about to happen, they are not adjacent to it. Monday morning arrived the way Monday mornings arrive when something has been set in motion and is simply following through. At 9:17 a.m., Cassie Holt published her piece. Not a brief, not a news item. A full investigative article. The kind with a title that takes a breath to read, with documents embedded directly in the text, with a timeline that a reader could follow from the May email to the August form to the 7 that followed at 3-month intervals. The title, The Promise That Wasn't, Inside Calloway Sound's Royalty Diversion, and a 5-year email that changes everything. Halfway through the piece, a pull quote from the anniversary dinner. My sister's voice, her own words from 2 hours before publication. All our authorizations are properly documented. Below it, all 8 forms. Below that, the email, my father's handwriting. I promised him 15%. Let's not delay this. The date, 3 months of silence. Then August. My sister read the article at 9:31 a.m. She called her attorney at 9:33. The line was busy. He was already calling her. At 11 a.m. on Monday, my attorney Nora Finch filed a temporary restraining order on the full Calloway Sound catalog. The TRO covers everything. No track can be licensed, sold, or transferred while the equity claim and fraud complaint are pending. A judge signed it 38 hours after submission. Standard timeline for something this well documented. At 2:14 p.m. the same day, the buyer, on a $340,000 sync licensing deal my sister had been negotiating for 3 weeks, received official notice of the restraining order. I know the exact time because the buyer's representative forwarded the notice to Nora with a 4-word reply attached. We're moving on. Sorry. I read it once. Put my phone face down on the studio desk and went back to the mix I was working on. 2 Calloway Sound deals collapsed on a Monday due to rights clearance issues within 6 weeks of each other. Same label, same infrastructure problem, different Monday. At some point, a pattern stops being a coincidence and starts being a resume. Tuesday morning, my sister's husband, Ty Briggs, issued a public statement through his own attorney, separately retained, which is its own kind of statement. I had no involvement in Calloway Sound's royalty account management. I am cooperating fully with civil proceedings. By noon, his Instagram had been edited. Every photo with my sister from the past year, removed. His profile now showed only professional posts, brand strategy content, speaking engagement announcements, a headshot from 2 years ago where he is smiling in the specific way of someone who has recently decided their personal brand requires a refresh. My sister called him 37 times that day. He did not answer once. I saw the statement. I noted the Instagram situation because Dex sent me a screenshot with no caption, the way he sends things when he wants me to register something without making it a conversation. I looked at it for about 4 seconds and closed it. I had a showcase to prepare for. Marcus Cole's first headline show sold out in 11 minutes. 200 industry guests. A venue in the Arts District that holds exactly that many people comfortably and no more. The room where the sound is right from every position and nobody is far enough from the stage to miss anything. Graham Ashby took a front row seat and arrived 20 minutes early, which for someone with 28 years in this industry is the professional equivalent of a standing ovation delivered in advance. The banner behind the stage read, Calloway Independent Productions in clean white letters on black. Jasper was in the crowd with the oversized headphones on, standing slightly apart from the people around him in the way he stands when he's fully inside something. Not performing enjoyment, just having it. I watched him from the side of the stage during the second song. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't looking at me. He was watching Marcus the way he watches things he wants to understand completely. After the set, I posted one Instagram story. No caption. Just the stage, the banner, and Jasper visible in the front section. Headphones on, facing forward. I put my phone away and didn't check it again that evening. My sister looked at the story at 10:47 p.m., viewed it 3 times. The third view was 40 seconds after the second. Then she closed it. I know this because the platform records it. I didn't go looking. It was just there when I checked the next morning. I noted it the same way I note most things now. Filed. Moved on. The settlement was signed 6 months later. Total: $303,400. Royalty diversion: $83,400. Equity claim: $220,000. My sister formally separated from Calloway Sound as part of the agreement. The CS marketing account, where 8 forms worth of redirected royalties had been accumulating, was dissolved. Ty received 0 liability in exchange for full cooperation with the civil proceedings. A trade his separate attorney had apparently been negotiating since the Tuesday he stopped answering his wife's calls. Nora called me when the wire cleared, gave me the confirmation number, said it was clean on all sides. I thanked her, hung up. The check arrived 2 days later. I held it for approximately 5 seconds, long enough to confirm it was real, not long enough to feel anything in particular about it. Then I went to the hardware store around the corner, bought a plain wooden frame, the kind they sell for $8 near the back, and brought it to the studio. I put the check in the frame facing backward, the blank side out, hung it on the wall beside the door. Not as a trophy, not as a reminder of what happened, as a reminder of what I'm not going to let happen again. The specific difference between those two things being something I think about more than I used to. That same afternoon, Jasper came in after school, dropped his backpack by the door, looked at the frame on the wall without asking about it, walked to the corner of the room where his acoustic guitar lives on its stand, the one he brought from home 8 months ago and has never brought back, and sat down on the couch, quiet for a minute. The specific quiet of someone deciding whether to say something. Dad. He turned the guitar over in his hands. Marcus's song was on the radio. 94.7 in the car on the way here. Which one? The first one. A pause. Yours. He put the guitar on his knee. Played a chord. Not anything I recognized. Not a cover, not a scale. Just a chord he found and was looking at from different angles. Then another one beside it. Then a third that didn't quite fit, and that he stayed with anyway, adjusting his fingers until it did something he seemed to find interesting. No structure, no direction, just searching. I reached over to the console without standing up. Found the record button, pressed it. I didn't say anything. Jasper didn't notice. He kept playing. Chord, pause, different chord. The sound of someone finding out what their hands know without being asked. The studio has good acoustics even at low volume. The room held it well. I looked at the screen. Opened a new session file. Typed the name slowly, the way you type something you want to get exactly right. JC, Origin. No catalog number, no label name, no co-publisher line waiting to be filled. Just the date, the room, and whatever my son was in the middle of discovering. What I see in this story, when you step back far enough to see all of it. A music producer spent 6 years rebuilding a stagnant label, developing artists, building compliance systems, registering intellectual property that became the foundation of everything the label owned. His father promised him equity for that work. His sister decided the right moment to honor that promise would never come. Over 24 months, 8 royalty diversion forms were filed with a forged signature, witnessed by a mother who trusted her daughter and didn't understand what she was signing. What brought it into the open wasn't an audit or an investigation. It was an artist reviewing his own ASCAP statements at home one evening and finding a number that didn't match. 1 phone call, 8 scanned documents. a journalist who arrived at a dinner already knowing what to listen for, and a mother who, when asked directly in front of 34 people, told the truth. The lesson here isn't about retaliation. The 8 forms were never answered with 8 forms. They were answered with documentation, with accurate registration, protected intellectual property, and a paper trail that reflected reality correctly. What you create belongs to you when you protect it properly. What gets promised verbally requires a witness who remembers. The $303,400 settlement closed the legal chapter. What opened in its place, 2 signed artists, a studio lease in one name only, and a file called JC Origin, that chapter has no ceiling and no co-author.